very much. Amanda.
Those are live pictures coming to you from an IEC press conference that's just been held for reaction now to those announcements. We're joined by our public relations strategist, Makhosini Mgitywa, and political analyst, Karima Brown. Makhosini, did I get that right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. A load to talk about coming out of that press conference. Karima, let's start with you. You're here in your capacity as a political analyst, but your name did come up in that press conference at the end, and I think it would be good of us to deal with that first. You had lodged an objection based on the fact that EFF leader Julius Malema had taken a screenshot that included your cell phone number and tweeted it, and you then went to the IEC on the basis of claiming that this is electoral misconduct and that that action had put your life in danger. We heard there from the IEC's chief electoral officer that that investigation has been completed. Your reaction to the comment there?
Well, it's news to me that the investigation has been completed. Let me read you my lawyer's note to me for the records that they sent to the IEC yesterday. It says, "Dear Mr. Russo, we would appreciate an update on our progress in this matter, including the date on which our client can expect to receive communication from the IEC on its decision. Thanking you in advance." So the IEC has obviously chosen to answer me through a press briefing. It hasn't communicated with my lawyers. I expect they will do so. So I don't know what the IEC's decision is in relation to the findings. They have appointed Bowman Gilfillan as the organization to investigate the matter. So I'm not sure about the IEC's decision because it hasn't been communicated to me or to my lawyers.
How do you feel about that personally?
Well, I feel that the IEC needs to give the public confidence that parties that are involved in campaigning for elections stand for constitutionalism, stand for media freedom, stand for the rights of media to do their job. More so because all the parties have signed an electoral code of conduct. And in the code of conduct, in section C8, there's a specific reference that both parties and candidates must do everything possible to allow journalists to do their work without any interference. There's also a special section in the code dealing with women and how women should be treated. So as you know, the threats that I got were that I would be raped, sexually assaulted, and of course that my skin will be peeled off my body. It is important for the IEC to communicate to the country how they're going to deal with parties that plays light with questions of media freedom and the ability to do their work. We saw, for example, ENCA and the African National Congress meeting over the bullying that happened of Samkele Maseko, and the ANC giving us an assurance that our journalists will be safe. And we haven't gotten that assurance from the EFF, quite frankly, that our journalists will be safe in places where we will go and cover the elections. So I hope that the IEC informs me very soon about it, because I'm going to be hosting town halls for my radio station, and the EFF is going to be invited, and I would, of course, like to feel safe in that environment to do my job.
Now, speaking of constitutionality, let's go in now on the rest of that press conference. Of the 53 objections that they received, or received objections to 53 candidates, only one has been upheld, and that is against a member of the PAC, a candidate who, according to the criteria of the IEC, was found guilty of an offence and was indeed sentenced to prison time without an option of a fine. Are we surprised? Are you surprised by their findings?
No, not at all, because the IEC's brief in terms of deciding who is eligible is very narrow, it's very bureaucratic, and of course it leaves the decision up to voters to decide decide whether someone who chokes a journalist in the precinct of Parliament, or somebody who calls a politician a dog, is someone that they want to vote for. That decision is left up to the voters. Having said that, though, I think that there is a requirement for reform, because ethics is, of course, really important, because we're talking about the type of political leadership that we're talking about. Given the period that we've come out of from state capture, it is important that our electoral institute and our electoral machinery and architecture speaks to that. A lot of weight is also, of course, on the parties, which is why the African National Congress informed us yesterday that they are still, in fact, sending their list to the Integrity Committee, and that they will then expect their people to do the right thing. And they, of course, then will make, if they fall by the wayside, they will be replaced by the next person on the list. So it's a mixture of choice by the electorate, obligations on the parties to ensure that they meet the criteria and that they are able to get the trust of the electorate, given the fact that they have people that might be compromised and unsuitable. But I do think the fact that so many NGOs, such as the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, Corruption Watch, the Helen Suzman Foundation, have spoken about the quality of leadership is important, because the legislature is an important place where oversight happens of the executive. If you have people there who are themselves ethically compromised, perhaps not legally, but ethically compromised, then you must wonder the extent to which they're going to be able to hold the executive to account. And of course, that is an important issue, and that raises broader questions about potential electoral reform, so that we can ensure that people who take the oath of office to become public servants do so with full respect for the Constitution and our Bill of Rights.
Makhosini, if I can bring you in here, a very important point made there. A reporter pointed to on the IEC's website the values that they promise to uphold: accountability, transparency and integrity. How do they feel that they've done so based on the 3 criteria that they have to vet these candidates, or these objections to the candidates? And Simon Mabolo making the point there that their requirement, or that criteria, does not include integrity and accountability. They only have the letter of the law. How do you feel about that? They are gatekeepers, but only within the letter of the law.
No, I think, some people were being unfair to the IEC. That is, you want the IEC to use bureaucratic means to solve political problems. Right? So if you take a political party that knows that amongst the people that it wants to send to parliament are people who have been accused of serious crimes, they haven't been found guilty, they have been prosecuted, but you send them to the IEC hoping that the IEC will solve your problems. And that is unfair on the IEC. The IEC must follow the letter of the law, that a person who is eligible is this person, a person who is ineligible is this person. Now, it's up to the voters, because this is how the system works. The political party says, here are the people that we will send to parliament if you vote for us, right? And we may choose from them, these people, to constitute the executive. So it's the voter to decide that I'm comfortable with all the people in the list of the party that I want to vote for, that I'll be comfortable even if they were made ministers and deputy ministers. So it's really back to the voter. Because what the IEC mustn't do, and I'm glad they're not doing it, what the IEC mustn't do, it is to interfere with the will of the people. If voters of any political party like all the people that they see on that list, it's not for the IEC to say we don't like this one. It's for the IEC to say this one does not meet the requirements in terms of the law.
This is the part of our democracy where we expect it to be grown-ups, aren't we? I mean, we are then, as voters, expected to decide who we believe as candidates and as parties are upholding the very definition of the word integrity. Are we ready to be that adult?
Let me tell you, this is one election, perhaps the first one since 1994, maybe 2014 could have been the first. Voters are going to vote holding their noses, right? Because of the stench that is on the ballot paper.
That's a great visual you've just given us.
Yeah, it's almost all the major political parties have issues. So people have to choose the least, revolting, of the political parties that they should choose from. So I'm saying we have to, as commentators, we have to, as the media, perhaps be more vigilant in dealing with these issues, in talking about them, in showing, the voters what they have to choose from. What I am observing mostly, unfortunately, is sort of political parties and politicians setting the agenda. I don't think that journalists maybe go to communities and say, what are the issues for you? What is it that concerns you? What is it that is uppermost to you? So you have that checklist against which you check the political party if it is talking to the wishes of the voters. Instead, what we do is we follow politicians. They set the agenda. They do the research. They give us the manifesto. We interrogate that manifesto within that scope that they've given us, and we follow them everywhere they go. So I think we need to up our game as commentators, as the media, and perhaps be more interrogating and not hope that the IEC will solve problems that we can't solve ourselves.
Karima, this issue of integrity, it's not something that's cast in black or white. The sky is blue, but what really is integrity? Is it a fairy tale for us to believe that that is still an issue in modern day politics, especially 20-odd years into our democracy?
No, I think what has happened in South Africa is that people have equated integrity with legality, and the two are not the same. Ethics and law is not the same. What is a legal fact and what is an ethical bar are two different things. And as you say, we need to be the grown-ups. We need to make that decision. But what has happened is that the politics in South Africa, the bar has been so lowered that you will have someone saying for 16 years, innocent until proven guilty, even if there's a studio full of documentation that shows that this is an unethical person, which is, of course, a different question about whether the person is guilty of breaking a law or not. So I think what the South African Council of Churches and civil society has been talking about is the fact that we need to find our political moral compass in the country. And that is not just the responsibility of politicians, like Makhosini said. That is our responsibility as citizens. We can't outsource that to politicians, big men and women in politics. We must take that decision. We must decide whether someone who has lied to a court of law is fit to represent us in Parliament. We must decide whether someone who is accused of rape is someone that must become a minister. And of course, the more we exercise our ethical compass, the more the political parties will have to take us into their consideration, because whether we're voting for parties or individuals, at the moment we're voting for parties, they serve at our pleasure. So I think that we need to not outsource our responsibilities on ethics, because political parties are political parties. They will do what is politically convenient. They need to win elections. If you look at coalitions, they are often based on expediency and not principle. So it starts with the voter. It starts with the person having to decide in the ballot box where they're going to put their X. And that is the critical question. And once society as a whole raises the ethical bar for politicians and public servants, they're going to be forced to come along kicking and screaming.
We're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time, Karima. Makhosini, as always great to have your insight. Thank you so much.